some of the things that are, we have for you is you may have gotten this on your way in. There'll be some more on your way out. And this is some key players in desegregating Arlington schools sports. So make sure you pick one up. And we'll also have this available on our website so you can see what you might have missed if you didn't get a copy. Another thing that we have available is an article published in the Arlington Historical Magazine. It's a yearly publication, and this is about desegregating and integrating Arlington schools. It was published a few years ago. It's still a very good article. And lastly, one of our participants, thank you very much, gave us an article about, let's see if I have it. It was published in 1966 about the championship game. And the author is here. We might let him talk a little bit about it. Thank you. It was in the Penman magazine that was the literary magazine for Washington Lee High School. So we have copies of this available as well. And again, we'll put everything on our website. Our website, as you might imagine, is www.arlingtonhistoricalsociety.org. So there's a couple things that I need to acknowledge. First of all, on the bottom of the program, you'll see the many people who participated in making sure this took place tonight. Every one of these people is critical, and I just want to draw your attention to that. We should also, if you haven't heard, Lance Newman passed away on Thursday, and his obituary is in the back as well as a series of pictures. So I would like to just take this second to commemorate this event in his name, because he was one of the first 4 people, African-American kids, to go to Stratford School in February 1959. He was one of the first 4. As a historian, it is always painful to see history pass away, and so it's the very least we can do is acknowledge his presence with us tonight in a different way. Okay, so I want to acknowledge Carmela Ham. Where did she go? Carmela Ham. She's outside. Okay, so she's working something outside, but Carmela Ham has brought all these fabulous people to us tonight. She has been the driving force behind this, and she'll come in, and I'm sure you guys will all say, there she is. But without further ado, I would like to introduce our moderator tonight, and I'm going to let him do the introduction for himself because he knows best. Reggie Harrison.
I'm mic'd up. Good evening. I am Kamal Ali Salam El, also known as Reggie Harrison. It's my pleasure to be here with all these guys, all these athletes. I finally got the opportunity to be with Washington Lee's greatest athlete is with us tonight, and that is Tyrone Epperson. Haven't seen him in a long time. Make no mistake about it. Make no mistake about it. This guy was the best athlete that ever walked through Washington Lee's doors. And I'm just proud to be here with him. He's older now. Hair's gray. I better cover my head up before I say that. But we're going to have a good time tonight, a real good time. And we have a panel of great people, great athletes, and we're talking about desegregation, and we don't want to mistake desegregation for integration. Desegregation is a law. Integration is in your heart. You integrate yourself, and you're good people. Okay? So, without further ado, I guess we better get right into it because Carmela wanted to come out and say a few things. Oh, here she comes now on the phone. Ma'am, can you hang up and get with this program? Okay, all right. Well, let me let her do her thing. I don't know how I got to be the moderator, but if you know Carmela you'd have to understand Carmela's mother. She never gave you a chance to deny or refuse anything. She'd tell you what you're going to do. So I was told I was going to be a moderator, and here I am. So anyway, I'm not shaking. I've had Parkinson's disease. I'm not shaking. So I feel pretty comfortable with you folks, and I hope you feel comfortable with me. So let me let Carmela say what she's going to say, and then we're going to get on with this.
I want to thank everyone for coming, particularly the ladies and gentlemen from HB, Wakefield, and Washington Lee High School. Before we start the program, I just wanted to give the folks here who are not from the Halls Hill, Green Valley area just a little bit of background about how it was growing up back in the day, as they say. I'm a little bit younger than some of the participants on the panel, so my perspective is a little different from theirs. But we grew up in a neighborhood where folks went by oftentimes by their last names, such as Smackham, Branch, or Ham. And with names like those, you don't think you would need nicknames, but we had our fair share of nicknames like Lucky, Butter, Cookie, Dump, and Meathead. Some of those people are here tonight. Halls Hill was a community where almost everyone was related. My family moved into Halls Hill in 1949, 1950. So our story is a little different from a lot of the others. But it was so interesting to me how, in growing up, and still in later years in my life, I discovered how many people are related on two sides of the family or through marriage or whatever. It was just a very close-knit family situation on Halls Hill. And I imagine Green Valley was a lot like that too, now known as NARC. The people that are here tonight came because of their love for the sport, their love of each other, their love of their community, and their love of their coaches. And in connecting with them, I learned so much more about my community and about what a lot of these people experienced as teenagers or preteens growing up in Arlington and participating in the public school system as well as in interscholastic sports. The way that this program came about, I have to share this with you because I knew nothing about the 1966 basketball team that was the first integrated team in the entire state of Virginia to win the state championship. When I found out about that last year in March, it was through a young man named John Peck, who's the historian for the Washington and Lee Alumni Association website. When John brought the story to my attention, I just found it to be so fascinating that it happened here in Arlington, and even more so that I didn't know about it. But I was a young girl in elementary school at the time. So John introduced me to a gentleman named Ed Hummer. Ed provided me with a lot of background information on sports and how things were during that time. And he also provided us with a great deal of the photographs that we have available. Then he introduced me to Linwood Moore. And Lynn provided us with the actual game program that came from the Patrick Henry Washington Lee football game in 1962, which, for whatever reason, the game had to be held in Roanoke, Virginia, which at that time was very racist. For those of you who may have had an opportunity to look in the exhibit hall, there's an enlarged poster of that game program and the team roster, where beside the names of every black player are the letters COL for colored. This game had an impact. I'm not sure of all the particulars that happened that evening, but some of the folks here, I'm sure, will tell you about it. But it's because of John Peck and Ed Hummer and Linwood Moore that this event is taking place tonight, so I have to give them thanks. The other individuals that have been just crucial to this happening are the folks from the Arlington Historical Society. Without their support and assistance, this would not have occurred in the physical sense. So I have to thank Mark Bimbow, his wife, Annette, who all of the printed materials and whatnot, she produced those, was responsible for getting a lot of the posters and things done. And also Kathy Hicks and Jessica Kaplan were a big assistance to us. This event is, we're going to cover several topics while we're waiting for Coach Levin to contact us and get hooked up with Skype. But we have several women that are here. Before the time that women participated in sports, they were cheerleaders. And we were fortunate enough to have another woman here who was the first African-American president of the Girls Athletic Association, who has an extremely interesting and heartwarming story to tell. As I said earlier, we have people from the 1966 basketball team, the 1962 football team, and others that played different sports in different years, including baseball and track, which Washington Lee won the regional championship for track, football, and baseball, first integrated teams in all sports. With that said, I'm going to go ahead and turn the program over to Reggie Harrison. And I don't know if you would like to have each of the people that are up here on the panel introduce themselves so that the audience knows who they are. We ran out of space with the table, so I apologize you can't see their name tags, but we'll have everyone introduce themselves, and hopefully by then we'll have Coach Levin on the phone. If not, we'll go ahead and start with the Girls Athletic Association and the cheerleaders, and then hopefully move to Coach Levin. Thank you so much.
Can we do an introduction starting from the far end down there?
My name is Winnie Owens Hart. It was Winnie Owens when I was in school. And I played basketball, football. Track and field. And it's funny because we weren't allowed to do things like the young men. We had to be in intramurals. We didn't have real competition. But I did play powder puff football for 2 years. And I believe Reggie helped us with that 1 year with the playbook. We were trying to learn the playbook for the powder puff.
Did I make it?
I don't know.
No.
I mean, it was an impossible thing to read, first of all. I don't know if you've seen the playbook.
Oh,
and
we're
then
cracking on each other now, huh?
And,
All right, watch your mouth now. Playing with the wrong one.
and I was elected the first African-American president for the Girls Athletics Association, among other things.
I'm Leslie Deskins Alakeem, and I was a cheerleader for Washington and Lee High School for the years 1967 to when I graduated in 1970. And of course, I was the only black cheerleader at that time. Debbie Newman, who was Lance's sister, was the only black cheerleader ahead of me. And then I encouraged Barbara Hamlet to be a cheerleader when I was leaving. I had two brothers who were very active in the sports programs of Washington and Lee, Ronnie Deskins, who played football and baseball, and Clayton Deskins, who was here, who played football, ran track. He would have played basketball, but my mother forbid him because he was just too busy and everything. But it's great to be here. Thank you.
I'm Tron Brecky. I graduated in '63. I played on the football team, '62 football team with Lynn and many others here. I was also co-captain of the baseball team when we won the Northern Virginia Championship, and I ran indoor track. Other than that, once in a while I studied.
My name's John Carroll. I played basketball with John Hummer at Stratford Junior High School. We were undefeated and untied, weren't we, John, as I recall? Played 65 and 66 for Mr. Levin, and I was co-captain of the 66 championship team with John, and I've been longtime friends with all these guys. And a lot of these, Lynn Moore and Eddie Hummer and Jerome Green and all of them have always been my idols. I looked up to them, and I still look up to them.
I'm John Hummer, teammate of Tyrone and James and John, and we'll hear from our coach, I hope. And we were the 1966 championship team.
My name is James Spriggs, and just like John said, I was the starting center for the team. Even though John is 4 or 5 inches taller than I, he wanted to be outside so he could shoot the ball.
My name's Ed Hummer, class of 1963 at W&L, proud teammate of Lynn Moore and also George Owens, who's around here. And we did our own things, but in 1966, I was at University Hall in the University of Virginia and watched these guys dismantle an undefeated Patrick Henry team for the state title. And let me tell you, it was a physical beatdown of unbelievable proportions. You're okay, you're okay.
I don't need that to hit me in the back. My name is Clayton Powell. I attended Hoffman Boston until my senior year when Wakefield or South Arlington integrated full. And I played football and basketball at Wakefield. And both teams, we won championships for football and basketball. And went to the state tournament, and we didn't fare well. We didn't even stay in the city of Richmond. We had to stay on the outskirts of Richmond. So that's me.
My name is Jerome Green, and I graduated from W&L in 1965. I had the honor of being elected co-captain of the football team by the upperclassmen, and that was a real treat. That's about it.
Hello, Arthur Branch, class of 64. Played the 3 sports, baseball, basketball, and football. And that's about it.
My name is George Owens. I was the first black to make the basketball team. And I'd like to apologize to Coach Levin for what I did in that 1962. He knows what I'm talking about. And I'd like to thank him because of his reputation. I was able to make the Air Force team without a tryout just by mentioning that I played for him in high school. Oh, I graduated in 63.
Anyway, 1969, I wasn't a captain or a co-captain or anything like that. I was just a ball player, and enjoyed myself at W&L and track and field also. We have on our agenda, the first subject we wanted to tackle was an overview of the Arlington black schools and the community leading up to desegregation. Now, I have to turn that over to some of these older guys because I don't even remember. I mean, I've had 8 concussions and all of that, and what can I tell you? So I'd like to take this to some of the older guys, both black and white. We don't have any Hispanics up here. I don't know any nationalities, but it's good. It's good. No, to get the perspective, get a black perspective. And
what's his name?
We didn't
Can you
have
figure it out?
any Hispanics. Well, you was either black or you was white, So I'd like some of the older guys to come up with it, both black and white, because as we were ready to go into this challenge, some of the white athletes were just as puzzled as we were. So Can we go down? There we go.
Well, first of all, and some of the information I'm going to give you was
John Hummer.
Morris, was gleaned from an event I went to in 2004 over the Central Branch Library, which was the 50th anniversary of the Brown versus Board of Education. And people spoke there who were then a generation older than me, okay? And they said some interesting things that you just don't think about, and not just the world today, but didn't think about back then.
You want this chair?
First of all, Arlington was much more southern then, less a transient thing. Now it's super liberal, okay? Then it was quite a bit more southern, okay? It started to grow just like Washington, D.C. started to grow after World War II. Before World War II, Baltimore was the big town. Washington was a backwater. In the Civil War era, the trains from New York stopped at Baltimore. But not only was it southern, but look, I consider myself an oblivious doofus from those days more than anybody with any degree of awareness, to tell you the truth. To me, I look back and say, what, you're telling me there were no black folks at the hot shop on Lee Highway who went there? I guess there weren't. It just, I didn't think about it. And I feel horrible I didn't think about it, but that was, I was an oblivious doofus. But in any event, what you didn't realize then, at least I didn't realize, is this is still Harry Byrd's Virginia. This is still massive resistance. This is still the Byrd organization. And let's not shortchange what that meant. The Byrd organization was the organization that enforced Jim Crow in Virginia, okay? And it did it in a particular way. It did it in a particular way which meant that in every courthouse, there were people in every county government, there were people whose job was to be answerable to the Byrd organization. I was told in that, it said the person in Arlington at that time was the Arlington treasurer. He was the tentacles of Harry Byrd in Arlington. Hard to believe, but true. When Arlington desegregated, when Stratford desegregated, they were very lucky they had Claude Richmond as the principal. Claude Richmond was a stately gentleman from the Richmond area. The beautiful Richmond Southern accent, patrician Southern accent that you can't find anymore. And Claude Richmond had a previous 12-year stint as principal, second principal of Washington Lee, which I didn't realize until recently. But also, Claude Richmond did not grow up believing in integration. When he was at Washington Lee, he probably didn't believe in integration. When he went to Stratford, as soon as it opened in 1950, he probably didn't believe in desegregation. But you have to, the world isn't binary. It's analog, and there's races, there's degrees of everything. Claude Richmond was also a Southern gentleman. Claude Richmond, 2 years before the desegregation of Stratford, brought the faculty together. I get very emotional. I can talk about Washington Lee forever, but I cry when I talk about Stratford because it just seems like such another world, so forgive me. But he brought the faculty together, and they organized the students, and they organized the faculty. Some teachers at Stratford would not teach black kids. Other teachers at Stratford thought it was an honor to teach the black kids. I was in the 8th grade then when Ronnie and the others came in the 7th grade. Lynn and I and Tron were there on the day. But he had called an assembly of the 7th graders. I just learned this in 2004. He called an assembly of the 7th graders before it happened. Took them all into that big auditorium at Stratford. Said, here's what's happening, and I need your support. Virtually 100%. I'm sure there were individual cases of something, but they bought in. These things are adult problems. Leave it to the kids at the time, things would have been fine. And things went fine at Stratford. Said, I can't speak, you'd have to ask the experience of the black kids. I can't speak to it. But in general, it went fine. A lot had to do with Claude Richmond. A lot had to do with the buy-in from teachers. And a lot had to do with the 7th graders. How else could it work? He did one other thing. There was the least popular person in any school is who? It's the assistant principal. They're the enforcers, girls' skirt lengths, you name it, everything, And there was a woman named Mrs. Mortimer. Mrs. Mortimer was the assistant principal. Suddenly, she gets married, her name's Mrs. Matthews now. She shows up at W&L a couple years after I get there. At this 2004 event, one of the teachers at Stratford said, you know why? Claude Richmond sent her. Claude Richmond sent her to see to it that those 4 kids, nothing bad would happen to them over the next 3 years. Was Claude Richmond a racist? He didn't favor segregation probably 5 years on, but he worked with the Arlington School Board that started the ball rolling. And they spent 2 years of hard preparation for February 2nd, 1959. There's an environment, there's Harry Bird. The place is changing, but there's still a lot that hasn't changed. But there's Dorothy Hand. But there's the Arlington School Board, who went a different direction from the county board and lost their independence for it. The Arlington School Board was the only independent school board in the state from the 1940s. They started this they lost their independence in 56. The state didn't permit independent school boards until the 1990s. After that.
Ed, I don't want to cut you off. We have Coach Levin on Skype. Rap to us about that championship team.
Well, first of all, let me explain some of the players I had on my team. I had Jim Spriggs. He played in 1966. He was on a state championship team.
He's here.
Tyrone Epperson
He's here.
played on a 1966 state championship team. Dennis Howard came a few years later. He was one of my captains.
He's passed.
John Tyler was on one of my teams. Sidney Williams was on that same team. Frankie Evans was on my last team, 74 probably. 72. Those were the players that played for me. They were all great players, or they wouldn't have been on a Washington Lee basketball team. They were winners. When I asked you earlier, am I on Levin time? And no one seemed to know what I was talking about. But if you ask the players, they would know what Levin time is. It meant 5 minutes before the practice opened up. And they would normally show up 10 minutes before because they didn't want to be late. That's discipline. They're winners. You look at some of the players around the state of Virginia, Mourning, never played on a state championship team. The guy from out in, what was the guy? No. The guy that just got into Hall of Fame. From out in Fairfax.
Out.
State Hall of Fame. But Grant Hill and a white player get along, and they both ended up losing before they even got to the state. They never made it because they weren't what is called a winner. They weren't Washington Lee winners. They didn't want to sacrifice and play for a winner. When people say to me, well, Coach, you won 3 state championships. I say, no. The Washington Lee players won 3 state championships. I was just their coach. You have to understand that. It's the players. They have to sacrifice, make amends. I had all great captains.
Okay.
Right here, both Hummers. John Carroll and John Hummer were great captains. They saw me before the season, and I told them what my plans were. And then I said, well, what do you guys have to say? And then they told me what I had to do. This is a captain. This is a leader. This is why we were winners. Jim Spriggs and Tyrone Epperson made us winners in 1966. If you really want to have a Hall of Fame, you should put the whole team on the Hall of Fame. Take the top 6 guys and put them on the Hall of Fame. They belong there. In 62 and 63. Hodgson and Bowen were the captains in 62. Ed Hummer and and Jim Hawley were the captains in 63. John Hummer and John Carroll were the captains in 66. These were leaders. You can't win without good leaders. Dennis Howard was a great captain. He later went into the military. Well, he went to a white college. He got in, and he didn't realize it, but the football team was watching him all the time. It's guarding him his whole freshman year, so nothing would happen. Later, he went into the military. He ended up retiring as a lieutenant colonel. Not bad. A pretty good leader. Dennis Howard just passed away just recently. He and I were very good friends. We would talk at least once every couple of months. I miss him. It's sad.
Coach, we understand you had great players, but I also wanted to make note, these great players had a great coach. And I enjoyed...
The players make the coach.
Okay.
Players do it.
Okay.
If you win a close game, I always gave credit to the players. If you lose a close game, it's the blame goes to the coach. Because he has a lot of things he could have done, but he didn't do them. He didn't prepare properly. It's the great players that make the coach.
Well, Coach, I understand that. But the thing that makes me the proudest is we had coaches, yourself, we had Ellis Whistler, we had Jack Walker, we had Roger Cole, John Youngblood.
Was a great coach.
Yes, and they coached athletes. They didn't care about coaching the white kid, the black kid. They coached all of us.
That's right. That's correct.
So
that's why they were great.
I really appreciate the job that you did. I didn't play basketball for you. You know, I was up on the balcony throwing a shot put, breaking the lights and stuff, trying to disrupt your practice. But anyway, I really appreciate.
Please tell me your name.
Reggie Harrison.
Oh my God. Oh, Reggie Harrison. Okay, great. Good to see you.
Finally, yeah. And then Coach, let me tell you what, to toughen up your big man, you sent John Hummer up to Halls Hill to play ball with the brothers. And I'll tell you, the first time I saw this guy, I said, my gosh, I've never seen nothing that big before. The biggest thing we had was James Spriggs, and John was 4 inches taller than James. So we toughened him up for you.
Reggie Harrison.
Oh, God.
Great to see you.
All right, Coach. It's my pleasure.
Fantastic.
All right.
Oh, yeah. You had a great career.
I tried.
Yes, you did more than that.
I tried.
And in Pittsburgh as well.
I tried.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, Coach. Well, can we move on with the program? We were glad that you chimed in on us, though, I tell you that.
You guys go ahead and have a good time. Enjoy. Thanks so much.
All right. All right.
Okay.
All right. Our next title subject, we wanted to have a brief discussion on the black students' involvement in the court case for desegregation in Arlington County. Now, I can't interject in that because I never knew there was a court case. And now I want somebody to explain to me, why was there a court case? Well, they didn't want us to come in and play ball or something like that, our involvement, or we was going to hurt y'all?
All I can tell you is that when all this started to happen, we and about 30 other students were plaintiffs to integrate Arlington County schools. And Ronnie Lance and Gloria, we were about the youngest. We were about 11 years old when this all happened. So it takes us back a long ways. But anyhow, the people working on it were people like Ms. Dorothy Hom. She was a major contributor to this. And the court case, the final court case ended up in Alexandria Court. And that's where they ruled that the schools have to desegregate. And there was, as Ed Hummer said, there was the big thing in Virginia regarding massive resistance where they wanted to close the schools rather than integrate. And so Arlington County, because I would say because Arlington County's proximity to D.C. and because Arlington County was filled with a lot of people from other parts of the world, federal employees, who weren't familiar as other parts of the state down in the part of the state in like Farmville, Virginia. So that's one reason they didn't close. So really, the court case was just led by the NAACP and local Arlington people who didn't want the schools to close, and even white parents who didn't want their kids to have to go to private schools. And that's why that happened, as far as the integration of the Arlington County Public Schools. It was a lot of people joining together to keep schools open for both white and black kids.
Curtis was pulled out of Langston,
Oh, okay, see?
sent to the whites' elementary schools, and he was a brainiac, you know, he was. But Curtis, give us a little insight on that experiment.
Well, my name is Curtis Spriggs, and Reggie's correct about that. I was in the 5th grade and going to Langston School, and they gave us a test. At the time, to me, it was just I didn't know anything about IQ tests, but it was a test where you looked at pictures and squares and things like that, and I was told it was a game. So I love playing games, and I played the game. Little did I know that it was an IQ test, and evidently I graded out pretty high. Came home, and my mother told me that I was scheduled to go to summer school. And like Reggie said, I don't know about the brainiac part, but I had good grades, and I didn't understand why I had to go to school, for summer school. Because to me, summer school was meant for kids that didn't do well in school. But anyway, I went to enrichment classes, which again, I didn't know anything about. But all I did in school was took a science class and played softball all day long. That was my summer school. The next year, they sent me to Taylor Elementary, and didn't know much about Taylor Elementary. And I think there was only one other black faculty member, and she was a librarian. So you can imagine for a small young kid going to a school surrounded by a lot of white kids. Matter of fact, some of my best friends were the Broyhills, and I guess a lot of people know the Broyhills. So made a lot of friends, studied, and then after that, I went to Stratford, which I was supposed to go to Swanson, but that was where the classes that I needed to take was. That's pretty much it, Reggie. Thanks a lot.
All right, I appreciate that. You know, one other thing I wanted to point out. Now, of course, Michael, Gloria, Lance, and Ronnie were the first to integrate that, but in 1947, we had a young lady by the name of Constance Carter. And I tried to find her and her family and the whole 9 yards, and I couldn't. I don't know if she's passed or what. But she was the first to try to integrate in Arlington County. Then we had Leslie Ham, Tyrone Nelson, and Joyce Bailey, okay, to try to integrate. Now, yeah, Claude Richmond was the principal at that time. I got sent, by the time I got to Stratford, he was the principal there. And he brought me into his office one time because I was a hell raiser. I did. I did my best to raise hell. You know. And he had this paddle, and it had holes in it. And he said he'd hit you across the behind, and suction would kind of suck your butt up, I guess. And I was kind of thinking, this weird dude, man, he hit somebody in the buttocks with that paddle. But I let him know right then, I ain't your boy, okay? You hit me with that, I'm gonna knock you out. So I got 3 days suspension for saying that. I didn't hit the man, I just got 3 days suspension for telling me I'd knock him out, you know, so there was. But as far as the lawsuit and stuff like that, I never really realized that there was a lawsuit there. We're moving down to, then it was a suit or some kind of court case that they had to go through for the black kids to participate in sports. And that just blew my mind because I was kind of thinking, well, oh, you let us come in here. I mean, now you got to move over, you know. I mean, that's just about the time to do it. And of course, Stratford and W&L now. Let me say this. Let me make this clear. We had a host of running backs from Ronnie Deskins to Jerome Green, Tyrone Epperson, all the way down to Stover and Butter Jackson. Clayton Deskins and I played in the same backfield together, and I'm gonna tell you right then, that was the best tandem W&L ever seen. But that's the way it went. So we, as a young player, I had these guys to thank for that example. I got a chance to play with Tyrone. He was a senior when I was a sophomore, and then he got hurt. So that was when I got my chance, man. I got to thank you for getting hurt, man. No, I'm just joking, man. So, but yeah, I got so many questions down here, or points down here that Carmelo wanted to make. I wanted to make some of my own, man. I don't like following stuff. I'm not that type of person, man. What they want to know is the overall effect that desegregation had on an individual student and the black community as a whole.
Yes. I'd like to say that I didn't say that I graduated from Washington Lee in '67, but I also went to Stratford, I think whatever that was, 2-3 years prior to that. And nobody has mentioned the wall. In order for us to go to school, when they redrew the lines so that we could not catch the bus, we had to walk. I don't know what the actual footage was, but we had to walk around the wall just to get to the other side near the Methodist church, and then walk the rest of the way to Washington Lee. But also there was the Nazi, what was the name of the, George Lincoln Rockwell. We had to go past that place to get to school. So it was not a pleasant trip at all. But I'm going to back it up to when I started at Stratford Junior High School and to tell you what it was like for me. My mother and father told us when told me when we were going to Stratford, she said, if they call you the N-word, it's because they are ignorant. So of course, I got called the N-word, and I just thought to myself, oh, he's stupid, But there was one little boy, and his name was Philip Odom, and I never forgot him because he was as mean as a tick. Every day he would take his locker and slam it into my locker. His locker was next to mine. Every day he would slam his locker into my locker. He was also in my homeroom class and my English class. And there was also a Mr. Johnson who was a teacher. And I'm telling you these two stories because, what was I, 12 years old? I'm not sure, what junior high school age it was, but I was a kid. And I grew up in black communities, first Falls Church and then Halls Hill. And they were the kind of communities that embraced their children, that any parent could, reprimand someone else's child and it was not a problem. Truly it was the village that was raising us. So I'm in homeroom with this Philip Odom and Mr. Johnson, the teacher. And one day, and this is when we used to have to stand up and salute the American flag. And one day, Mr. Johnson, the teacher, said, I want you all to stay, and Martha Gardner and I were the only two blacks in the class. Integration, when I was going to school, was 1 black and 29 whites. That was integration. And so he told us, he told the class, he said, I want you to stand up and pretend that's the Confederate flag and salute it. And of course I refused, and I went home and told my mom. Now those of you who know my mother, she was a mild-mannered person. Well, when she found out, she went down to the school and all hell broke loose. She said, don't you ever subject my child to that, blah, 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 blah. The last thing that happened before I left Stratford is I was voted most athletic girl. And this guy named, oh God, how could I forget his name? I told somebody this story earlier today. What was his name? It was Whitman or something like that. Yep. Billy Witt, that was it. So, oh, I'm gonna out you. I've tried to find him and Philip Odom to see,
He's in West Virginia.
Who said that?
I did.
Oh, you know him?
Yeah.
Thank you. Talk to you
He's
later.
in West Virginia.
So then they had most popular girl, most popular boy, so everybody took pictures together. Now, I was the type of person that I made friends with everybody, the so-called hoods, the preppy girls. I was friends with everybody because I was between an art major and a phys ed major. So I found my Stratford yearbook, and in it is everybody is in the same page, won these titles. And then there's a split between Billy Witt and I because he said he wasn't going to take a picture with an N. Well, it backfired on him because, they used to call him a hood. Same person, right? Yeah. So I had hood friends too, and preppies, and so nobody really, he really got kind of, the cold shoulder. So then the next thing, I go to Washington Lee, and they're good things too, because Miss Adair was my art teacher in Stratford, and she knew I liked ceramics. So by the time I got to Washington Lee with Mr. Anderson, they had a wheel and everything for me to make pottery and stuff. So that was a good thing. In the art room and in the gym, everything was fine. The only thing that I would say about what I didn't know, I tested out high, so I got in the advanced placement classes. And I didn't realize, I talked to some friends afterward who did not test out high and they were in the regular class, and they told me that it was hell for them at Washington Lee. And so that was one part that I was kind of oblivious to, but okay, I'm having a senior moment. But it's just to say that, on an everyday basis, Stratford was hell. because I was a kid. And then to go to Washington Lee, and we kind of made a joke out of the walking the wall. We would tell jokes and laugh just to, but, we were well aware of how, ugly it was, So that's, the one thing I did forget, my mother said I could swim before I could walk, and I love the water. And they used to tell me they had to take the stopper out to get me out of the water. And somebody said to me they didn't know that I was a swimmer. Well, I've been swimming ever since. So they had a swim club at Washington Lee, and I decided I wanted to join. And there was some pushback. And I don't know if it was a board decision, but the board said if she doesn't swim, nobody swims. And we practiced, they didn't have a pool at Washington Lee. We practiced at the Cherrydale Swim Club, Aquatic Club, which definitely was not integrated. And so I have a picture from the, what's the magazine that used to be put out at WNL, like maybe monthly or weekly? Was that the paper, the two? Yeah, okay. So I found, not only did I find the book, my yearbook from Stratford, I found a newspaper article, and there's a shot, it's the same shot that's in this, I think it was taken the same day, in this yearbook that I found, which you don't see me in the yearbook, but in this article, I'm the only brown person there. And what happened the very first time I went in, I'm like, ooh, water. And so the kids got out. And so my attitude was, backstroke, thank you. So, so that's my experience.
Anybody else? Okay. The question was, okay, here we go.
My name is Tyrone Epperson. What I want to say how it affected me, I went to Swanson, and in my English class, each day I would go to that class, and at the beginning, I didn't understand like certain subjects, or I had questions that I wanted to ask, and I didn't really know that I could ask the teacher, certain questions or whatever. And so I needed help, and I didn't finish my my homework assignments. So each morning, I would come to that class, and the teacher knew that I didn't do my homework because I didn't understand what I was supposed to do. And each morning, she embarrassed me about 10 minutes of the beginning of the class, every morning for that whole year. And that's just one of my experiences.
I just want one other thing to say. If you'd known Tyrone back in the day, some of you guys know who Victor Oladipo is, don't you? In the NBA. Tyrone looks like Victor Oladipo. He jumped like Victor Oladipo. He was Victor Oladipo back in the day.
Yes, yes. We, it was a pleasure participating with this guy. I mean, I learned more stuff watching him run and stuff, and watching him fight. Just great person. Of course, this just doesn't go back to high school. I was best friends with his youngest brother, so I've been around him for a long time. Okay, the next subject they wanted was the overall racism that was experienced and the significant impact that various coaches had on us. Now, I was going to remain silent, but this question, I just got to tell you 2 instances. And I know you all say, oh man, the N-word. Well, I'm not going to use the N-word. I'm going to tell you like it was. We had a head coach, Ellis Whistler, that was just a great person to me. And he never gave a darn about my color or anything like that. But he had a buddy to come down. See, they at one time played for the Virginia Sailors. And he had one of his buddies to come down, an old redneck dude, man, he got to be. And he was always, Reggie, you got to do this, Reggie, you got to do that. Man, shut up. Just don't call my name no more. But in order to get me fired up for a ball game, this guy thought of something spectacular. I guess that's what he thought. He went out, they parked the school bus right there at the gym door. And he went out and wrote on the thing, because we were about to play Annandale or Stewart or something like that, but he wanted to get me fired up. So he went out and wrote on there that thought that the other team did it. Reggie Harrison is a fat nigger. So that was supposed to piss me off. And I tell this story all over. And the guy said, well, did it piss you off? And I said, damn right it pissed me off. Who the hell he calling fat? You know, I'm ready to get down with him, you know. Don't call me fat. I ain't fat. Shit, you know. Shit. I can take a lot of things. You can call me whatever you want to call me, you know. Don't call me fat and don't call me late for dinner. So that was one. Now, we had a guidance counselor at WNL. Everybody says I'm not mentioning any names and stuff. Boy, I look good on there. But I'm going to mention the name. Her name was Sarah Cloud. And Miss Cloud brought me in her office and told me that if I didn't get with the program, all I was going to be was a garbage collector. And I wish I could be around her now. I'd like to go and take her garbage out and just let her know, you know, old garbage collector got as far as the NFL and other things. So, and before you try to come down on me, you got to understand that I'm powered by a higher being. Okay? You hear what I'm saying? I hear that. Yes, Lord. I'm powered by a higher being, and it was my God that took me as far as I went. Now, if she wants me to take her garbage, I'll be glad to. That's just the way I roll, you know? So, okay, expound on this, because we had coaches, we just had one. 11, I never played basketball for him, but you could get his input into your life walking down the hallways and stuff, and he'd always do that. Now all of a sudden, well, I go, he's old. He can't remember my name, you know? So
Mo taught you things to live by. He gave you principles. You heard him talk about discipline. But Mo taught you things that you could live after your career is over. You know, Mo told me one time, he said, Frankie, sports is to keep your butt off the streets, but your education is for your life. And it didn't hit me until afterwards, a lot of things that Mo would teach me, because here's a kid, I came to Alden County in the 7th grade from Prince George's County. It was a lot different. Alden County was a lot more racial sensitive than PG County. PG County was not a place to be as a black kid out like that. Didn't have the freedom like you did in Alden County. I recognize that, but what Mo taught me, man, and what Mo went through to make these guys like this. Mo's a Jewish guy. Come on now, we're not just talking black and white. He went through something to integrate these teams. Each and every one of us have a piece of it in our hearts. So I was so grateful, because the things Mo taught me, I took it for granted while I was with him. I was a 3-year starter. Trying to catch these guys, the bar that they put there. And Mo taught me something, and I had to lose to learn the principles of what the man was teaching me for the rest of my life. How to treat people, how to teach people how to treat you. And Mo taught me, he's one of 4 people that put an impression in my whole life that I would be able to help others. He would tell me, pull your head out your butt. It's real. Deal with it. And how you deal with it will make everybody better, and you too. So if it wasn't for those people that taught us to integrate, to give our heart before us, so that we could teach the next generation, we wouldn't be here today. And it's people like Mo Levin. Every one of us got a teacher that was special like that. Every one of us. And we got to keep that legacy going. So I just thank Mo for being like that. Wallowak was another one. Mr. Dean. They were telling you, look, knucklehead, pull it out. There's more to you than that. So I was grateful, man, for the teachers that I had.
All right. Let me point out one other thing. Frankie is an author. What's the name of the book?
Scarred on Both Sides.
Scarred on Both Sides. If you ever get a chance, pick it up, read it. It's very informative. I enjoyed that. Yeah, but I didn't buy it. Come on, Cook.
I think I'm the sole soul from Wakefield here, and I don't know how many people. I know when August of 1964, when we showed up on the field at Wakefield High School, I think Wakefield had already had their team basically set for that year, and we just 14 of us. Set on the sidelines for the first week, because all you could do the first week is have your helmet on and shoulder pads. And as the week got to going and going, and then the next Monday, we had on full pads and started to hit. And that's when a person, one of the black guys, I think they already had one black student on the football team from previous years, and that was Larry Randall. And he came there from TJ, and he never went to Hoffman Boston. He just went from elementary there. And he had been there, so like I said, that next week we started to hit. And so a person moved in there, and we also, our football coach from Hoffman Boston was one of his assistant coaches. The head coach was Edmondson, and he didn't, he was different. And Haygood said, this person could play here, and this person could play here, and this person could play here. And finally, in my scrapbook, on the line, you had 3 blacks. You had, actually it was 4. Larry Randall was he was there. And then you had Harry Wilburn. You had this guy, Joe Smackham. You heard somebody say Smackham earlier. His last name was Smackham. And I played in. And I also played safety. The first game we played was against George Washington, and we lost 6-0. And then we ran off 9 straight, and we beat Washington Lee that year. And a lot of these guys up here on the stage.
I wasn't there.
No, you weren't. A lot of these older fellas on the stage, we knew each other from elementary school, because we played baseball. And that's the only thing we could play, Little League baseball. And we had 3 teams, one from Halls Hill, one from Green Valley, and one from Johnson Hill. No, just one, Jackson All-Star. No, that was after. Yep. But yeah, we only had the Jackson All-Stars, the Black Sox, Halls Hill, and athletics from Johnson Hill. But anyway, and the Boy Scouts. And so we knew one another prior to. But when we first got to Wakefield that year, and the season started, or before the season started and practice was there, we felt left out. But then again, we were welcomed. And the coaches knew who could play, and you were able to move into positions not just because you were black, but because you were good for that position. And the same thing, we knew on a basketball team, and I also played on the basketball team, we knew the players from Wakefield because we had scrimmaged them in 1963, December 1963, which really you shouldn't have done, but it was there, and so we scrimmaged. So when we went over there, and after football season, we went into basketball, we had 7 blacks and 7 whites on the team. And my biggest, the only problem that we had through, I think, 20 games was when we played Lee, and somebody hollered, as the game was going along, somebody hollered out from the other side of the court, the N-word. And all of a sudden, the game just stopped.
What they call you, nice?
No, not nice. I'm just, they just the N-word. I'm going with that. I don't like to use the, but anyway, the gym was cleared, and when we came back out, it was police in the gym. And that's the only time I felt really scared, because we never, police wasn't one of the things that you were used to, didn't want to know. And the next thing was when we went to the state tournament that year, and we didn't even stay in the city of Richmond. We stayed on the outskirts about 15 miles outside of Richmond. We couldn't even practice in Richmond. We had to practice at, I don't know if anybody heard of the College of Virginia Union.
Yeah.
And we had to practice there. So
64, which season, 64?
64, 65. This was a 65.
Wow, 1 year before the state title team at WNL.
Yep, because we beat WNL that year. In fact, I showed your brother a picture where I took him to the hoop. But anyway, it was in my it's in my yearbook. It was one of those yearbooks. And I waited 52 years to show it to him.
Big John, he's talking fairy tales now. Let me bring up one other point. I wanted Ronnie here. Clayton's here, and I thought Clayton would be up on stage, but he decided to sit down there. But anyway, Ronnie Deskins made a statement that the things that used to piss him off was the little statue, the lawn jockey, and I wanted to explain to him. See, they stopped making those lawn jockeys when they found out that lawn jockey's name was Jocko Graves. And Jocko Graves did as much good during the Revolutionary War as Harriet Tubman and all of them that freed slaves. Jocko Graves was the man. And when they found out that he was about some substance, they stopped making those things. Now, I tried to find one, because I didn't put it in my yard. You see, that's me. I didn't put it in my yard. I want Jocko Graves in my yard. They have some old Rudy Poot makeups that you can get for $100 and over, but the real deal, $3,500 and up. Huh? No, man, I ain't gonna do that, man. He messing with you, man. He messing with you. Yeah. So, but another thing, because in more science, I speak a lot. I used to speak a lot. Now that I have Parkinson's disease, I try not to, because sometimes I can't get the words out, and then sometimes I start shaking and all of that. And matter of fact, I was at doctor's office in Springfield, and I started shaking real bad. And this little kid, this little white kid, she looked and she thought I was cold. So she took her little jacket off and she put it over my chest. Now, she was a tiny girl, and that jacket must have only covered that much. But this is a concern. I'm not talking about black or white. I'm talking about a kid that was concerned and concerned about me. She was concerned about this child of Allah, okay? And I appreciate that. And when I got up to go, when the doctors called me back, she grabbed my hand and she said, it's going to be okay. When I got back when I got back to the doctor in the door, I had tears coming down my eyes. And it kind of blew Dr. Bourgeois' mind because I have what they call PBA also. See, all these concussions and stuff like that, it's all gets you all messed up. But he was concerned, that sometimes I can bust out laughing and sometimes I can bust out crying. Sometimes I'll try to walk like I did tonight, and I wish I hadn't, but since it's raining, I've got my scooter. If I put my scooter on the back of my truck and it gets wet, man, I'm coming through stores and the horn is blowing and stuff, people looking at me like I'm crazy. But those are just some of the things that I've been through. But I would like to hear, because I watched this guy play ball. The most aggressive son of a gun, see, I didn't curse, son of a gun that I've ever seen carry a football. I'd like to hear something from him, It doesn't do you any good to come up on this panel and be quiet, So, and this is Jerome Green. Those that don't know, we call him Meathead. Now, I don't know why, but yeah. Yeah.
It's working?
Yep. Yeah, it's working.
Going to Hoffman Boston was probably one of the best things that ever happened to me, because I learned there that if you didn't work, they would keep you in the same grade. And I didn't find that out till after the 7th grade, and I was still in the 7th grade, and everybody else had gone to the 8th grade. And I figured out then, I said, well, okay, this is not going to work. You got to get out of here. But going to Hoffman Boston, again, like I said, was a real learning experience. And when I got to W&L, I kind of had mixed emotions, because I wanted to maintain my friends that I had at Hoffman Boston, and I didn't know that I would make good friends at Washington and Lee. But I did make some of the best friends at Washington and Lee that right to the day I still talk to a couple of guys that I went to school with there. And it's an experience that you have to go into with your mind open. I got into one fight, and I only had one fight at W&L, and that was it, and that was the only fight, anything negative that I could say happened to me at W&L. The teachers were great. I had teachers like Colonel Brose. I don't know if any of you guys had Colonel Brose, but Colonel Brose lived across the street, and he knew I had problems with English, and he told me, he said, if you'd get up, I'll get up. He said, you meet me here an hour before class. I'd never had a teacher say that to me. And every day, him and I met in his classroom. And then I had a math teacher, Mr. Webb, one of the best guys that I ever met. I mean, he made you feel comfortable when most students, when you around a teacher, you kind of got your guard up a little bit. But and the best guy that I still carry things that he taught me today, that was John Youngblood.
Yes.
I don't think I've ever felt about a teacher as I did John Youngblood. You talk about fair, honest, giving you everything he had, and he expected you to do the same. And John Youngblood knew how to talk to you. He knew how to get the best out of you. Bernard always tells a lie that I wouldn't give him a ride home from school because he wasn't first string. That was that was a lie. That was but John Youngblood taught us to love one another as teammates and to fight for each other. And like I said about Lance was probably one of the hardest working guys on the football team. Between him and Michael Jones, I don't know who were the hardest. But you talk about, Reggie was talking about running backs. The best running back that came through WNL, and I blocked for some of the best. This boy didn't even want to play football. He used to tell Mr. Youngblood, I don't want to play football. And that was Harry Struthers. He could carry it, and I used to block for him, and I know he could carry it. And I blocked for Ronnie as well. And I still say if Harry wanted to play football, he would have been a hell of a football player. He ran track as well. But John Youngblood was everything that when I think of WNL, that's the first person I think of. Him, Colonel Brose, Mr. Webb, the math teacher. And there was someone else. Oh, you were talking about Ms. Matthews. Ms. Matthews pulled me aside. No, she called. You remember the Honix Men's Shop in Clarendon? Well, Julie was in my class, right. Well, Julie and I were good friends, and we kidded, and we just had a ball. And she called her father and told her that we had become too friendly. And Mr. Honig came up there and gave her a piece of his mind. I mean, he just laid right into her. And so going to Washington Lee again, it was a big difference. It was a big, big difference. But I enjoyed every day of it until Sandra told me she was graduating and she wrote in my yearbook, she said, I love you, but I gotta leave you. But I enjoyed WNL. Thank you.
Let me tell you my best Miss Matthews story. They used to park down by the gym. It was called the senior court at that time. And of course, we had a bathroom on the first floor that the window would just open up and you could see everything. Of course, it had snowed, and I made me a nice snowball, and I looked out there, and here she came. And she got out of that car, man, I threw that snowball. And she used to have that little, what do they call that, beehive kind of, and that thing hit that beehive, man, and that thing just exploded, man. I mean, it just exploded. She knew who would do something like that, you know. And she came up there, she was looking for me, and I had gone on and put my hands down in hot water and wiped them all off and stuff, you know, and I was up in my locker when she came, and she tapped me on my back, and I turned around, and I said, yeah, can I help you this morning? And she said, did you throw a snowball at me? And I said, what are you tripping off of, man, you know? And look, I tore her head up, man. I don't give a damn. I tore that head up. Anyway, I want to hear from Arthur Branch. I want to hear from George Owens, James Spriggs. Also, I want to hear from the cheerleaders. Barbara Hamlet. Where's my sister-in-law? Wasn't she in here? Oh, there. Bonetta. Vaughn. Cookie, you a cheerleader too? Were you? You know, I was trying to get with Cookie. She wanted to brush me off, you know, play that old bull. You know, that's okay. But anyway.
I'm going to tell you a quick story that Red wanted me to share with everyone tonight. Red was a coach at Woodson High School. Red, I'm just trying to keep this from making noise. Red was the coach at Woodson High School and very successful. One day he got a call. He wanted me to tell you the story. It was 1964 or 5, 64, I believe. And he's called the principal's office. He says, oh, I wonder what that's all about. He gets in there, and the athletic director's there, the head of the Board of Education from Fairfax County, about 10 other people. And he goes, oh, my goodness, this is it. I'm going to get fired. Wonder what I did. And the gentleman starts the meeting and says, you know, Red, we're really sorry to have to do this. And, you know, going on and on about how this is very difficult. And he goes, oh, here it comes. I'm getting fired. He says, but we really would like you to hire a black assistant, a coach. We have this gentleman here, Mr. Brandon, and he's been turned down by 9 other coaches in the county. This is 1964. Red, who later coached AAU teams all over the country, is an excellent basketball coach, says to me, I would be thrilled to have Mr. Brandon as my assistant coach. And then the good news, oh, by the way, his son and his best friend come along. They were both 6'6" and African American. And they didn't live in the district. They had an apartment away from the district. And Red every day would pick them up for school and then drive them home at night. And we played them, John and Tyrone. You remember those guys? We beat them 36-35 at our gym. We were lucky to beat them. But Red is a great man, and he wanted me to share that story with everyone.
This thing is, I guess, I don't know. Oh, gosh. Y'all had a basketball game and only scored 36 points? Wow.
No, they held the ball on us.
Okay. Okay. Well, you know, we want to hear from some of the guys. Arthur Branch ain't said nothing. That's the first time I ever known him to keep his mouth shut. Yeah. How you doing back there, brother? Oh, you hanging.
All my experiences at WNL were great. I had no problems with any of the teachers, none of the students. I guess I came out at the right time. I don't know. Some of my fondest memories were the Journey Inn in Georgetown. You guys don't know anything about that, do you? Max's, those places. But we're talking about, Reggie said something about a low-scoring game. I think Mo 11, one game was 20-19 or something like that. He just held the ball, you know, the whole game. But I have no bad experiences. Everybody, I still talk to some of the guys, very few, most of them are probably passed on, but no bad experiences at all. No fights, nothing. So.
Yeah, you couldn't fight.
Yeah, no, well, and I don't have a losing record. I can't say that for you.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I took my lumps, man.
One reason Mo Levin had low scoring game because he believed in defense. He used to tell us every time you stop them from scoring, it's a score for you. And I remember we played scrimmage against Georgetown University, or not Georgetown, Maryland University freshman team. We beat them. It was always low scores. It was in the under 20s and stuff. And if you look in the yearbook, you see the low scores. He believed in defense. Now, when I got to WNL, Ham, Leslie Ham, Paul Morrison, and myself, we tried out for the basketball team. Mo believed in the future. He told Paul, you're a 12th grader. You can't help me next year. Ham couldn't play as well. Now, I could jump. That's all I could do. I could stand underneath the basket at the time, being 6 feet, because Mo gave an inch on everybody on the team. And I forgot about that years later. I was arguing with the guy. I told the guy I was 6'1". He said, no. And we measured, and as soon as I measured, I said, oh, that's right, Mo added an inch to my height. So I could stand underneath the basket and jump straight up and dunk with 2 hands without grabbing on the rim. And one time in the locker room, now being black, you were ashy in the wintertime. And I put lotion on my leg, and my teammates said, what's that? I said, jump high lotion. And they said, give me some of that, you know. But Mo called the three of us in the office. He said, now, what would you do if they called you the N-word? And we all, he said, no, you're not going to do anything. What are you going to do if they spit on you? He said, no, you're not going to do anything. And, we weren't used to the black. We're not going to defend ourselves. So when I made the team, we played George Washington High School in Alexander, wasn't it? And the only black person in that school at the time was the janitor and me. And there were signs around, jungle bunnies, all that. They threw gorilla bears on the floor. And I said, ooh, what have I got myself into? And all of a sudden, my teammates surrounded me. I said, these dudes love me. And I never had bad experience. I never had bad experience. And like Ed said, Paul Monson would probably have been the best guard that they ever had. But he was that good. But because he was in the 12th grade, Coach said, you can't help me, But I had a good experience. Now, Paul later joined the Go-Go Club, and they were the male cheerleaders. When you went to a game, you would see a group of guys. Paul was the only black guy, and they were all white, and they were raising hell. And everybody would stop and look at them, Because Coach Levin had a system. He said, well, let the other team come on the floor, and then you come on the floor and make a noise, and everybody would stop and look at you. And that's what they did. And everyone on the team was able to dunk except for one guy. Ed would put the ball up on that square and let it fall down. And when he do a jump shot, he would look like he was shooting down on the ball. But we beat the freshman college team and stuff. But I had a good time. I was glad I went to Washington Lee because they told me at the time that I would not amount to anything, different teacher. Because I didn't know I was going to graduate from Washington Lee until the day of graduation. But I made I said, I'm going to prove these people wrong. I went into the Air Force immediately after I left high school. And I took my first college course from William & Mary Extension course. It took me 10 years to get a degree, but I became a teacher. Then I got tired of dealing with incompetent people, so I went back to the post office. But if it wasn't for those people at Washington telling me I wouldn't mount to anything, I probably wouldn't have mounted to anything. But I was determined to prove them wrong. And my whole time at Washington Lee, it was a learning experience, and I enjoyed it.
All right. Man, I could look at all that stuff. I could take all that stuff, all the name calling and all that, but you spit on me. That's your ass. I owe another $1.
I want to say just a minute about George. George is on a 1962 team picture, and I'm so happy for that. As he says, he took himself out to keep his grades going, but as much as I love Jim and Tyrone, the first black player on the state championship team should have been George. No question about it. Because he would have played, and it should have been George. Should have been different. It should have been different.
We've heard from a lot of people, but I haven't heard from Mr. Carroll or Mr. Moore.
Like my players said, we had a good team in '66, and wanting to play basketball at Swanson, which we did, but we didn't have a good team. I remember Hummer coming down, and I was going the whole team one time, and we was about to get him after the game, but the coach told him to leave him alone because I'll see him again. And I did at WNL 2 years later. Playing basketball at WNL was a good experience for me. Thought I wanted to be a football player, but back in the days, they still had the regular spikes, and trying to be a wide receiver wasn't my game. So coach told me one day, he said, Jimmy, if you don't go back out to play football in your junior year, I guarantee you'll be my starting center. I said, well, you got Hummer, he's 6'7". He said, I guarantee you'll be my starting center. Just come on out. And it was a good experience. I was a starting center. After leaving WNL, I went in the Army just like George and played Army ball, starting center. We had a good team in the Army. I was in Germany. We was 29-3. We was company champs, we were battalion champs, and my first team made the USARA All-Star team, which is like an all-star team for the military. So I traveled throughout Germany playing ball, came back home, wanted to go back to school, so I got in touch with Coach Levin. And he said, well, if you want to go back to school, I'll help you. So he knew some people down in North Carolina, and he sent me down to King Business College, where I played ball at King Business College, and I was once again the starting center, because I could jump, and I knew how to not only rebound and jump, but I knew how to block out. And that was one of the reasons why Coach wanted me, because he knew John was a good jumper, but John didn't want to be underneath the basket all the time because Wakefield has 5 or 6 brothers. And back in the days, they gave John the blues, but I was more like his protector. Tyrone and I both were. Yes, sir. And we had good times. So I got bright memories, not only of the basketball team, but Coach Levin, and I still to this day communicate and fond memories of being at WNL. And also, Winnie, we did get your boy for you. The guy that you said that you had issues with, Billy Witt. Yeah. Y'all remember Battling Bell?
Yep.
We got him for you.
That's right.
We got him for you.
That's right.
I'll tell a story about our 66 team, and about Tyrone Epperson, and about Coach Levin, and just what it takes to be a championship team. We had lost our second best scorer, Tommy Dunlop. Was a hell of a player, 6'4", quick, slasher. Been told that if he graduated from high school, he had a scholarship at West Virginia. All he had to do was get his grades up. Anyway, third game in, our senior year, he flunks off the team. I go into Mr. Levin's office, and he's white as a white shirt. He looks like he's about to throw up. I said, Coach, what's the matter? He said, did you hear? Tommy just flunked off the team. Well, you know, I'm not going to kick the guy when he's down. I'm the co-captain with John. So my immediate instinct was, don't worry, we'll be better without him. And he thought I was just making that up. I wasn't. This guy right here, Tyrone Epperson, was sitting on the bench. And I knew that he would make us a better team. He needed more playing time. One day in practice, things are kind of quiet, and we're kind of running back down court. And John and I turn around, we look, and Tyrone is in a violent fistfight with Mike Slade, who later pitched for the Texas Rangers and pitched at Florida State, was our 6'3" guard. And they're going at it. And John and I rushed down and broke up the fight and made him apologize. But Mr. Levin made him apologize to the team the next day. Coach Levin thanks John and I for taking care of it because he couldn't take sides. Is he going to take sides with the white player, Mike Slade? Or is he going to take sides with Tyrone Epperson, the black player? And to this day, we don't know what caused that fight. We don't want to know. But let me tell you the rest of the story. One that's coming now, Tyrone and Mike are really playing a lot, but we still had another senior who was getting starting time. And Mr. Levin didn't know who to start Tyrone or start Mike. Well, Tyrone goes to Mr. Levin and says, Coach, start Mike over me. It means more to him than it does to me. And that's a 16-year-old kid. Now that's teamwork, that's giving of yourself for your teammate. Well, it was about 2 games later, they were both starting. And because of those 2 guys, we won the state championship. Because losing Tommy Dunlop was a killer. He was that great a player. Anyway, just want to thank you.
Did we hear from Mr. Moore, Lynn? Thank you, John.
Well, I think Ed earlier talked about being somewhat oblivious to all this going on when we were that age. And I have to say I was too. I was an Air Force brat. We lived on air bases, and I went to school on air bases, all of which were integrated. So when we moved to Virginia, the whole concept of desegregating was something that I just really knew nothing about. But I've been fascinated tonight to hear the stories, because over the years I've come to realize what a challenge that has been to a particular group of people. when I would examine abstracts in my law office, and I would see some of the old development restrictions where they would say you can't sell to Negroes or Indians, to see the, to understand the job restrictions where they wouldn't hire anybody. It has been an incredible challenge, and I think we've made some great strides, but we still have a long way to go. And it's events like this that I think will help us all learn and understand what we need to be doing. And hopefully it will be sooner than the next generation or two before we're really where we should be. But again, I think this event has been great in that regard.
I'm going to take you all up from 1964, that's when the year I was born, up to 1979. And what happened to me, racially incidents that happened to me in my elementary, I attended Taylor Elementary School, as well as Swanson Junior High. And then I went from Swanson Junior High into 9th grade with Yorktown High School. Now, when I was in elementary, one incident happened to me, because this was the first time I was called a nigger. A little white girl was on the bars, and I was in the sand playing. All of a sudden, she called me the N-word. You're not supposed to be here. Yes, I know, but I'm progressing. Okay. Called me the N-word and said, I'm not supposed to be there. You're supposed to be somewhere else. And then she spat on me.
Oh, that's when the fight broke out.
I don't know, because I never knew the N-word at that age, because I was in 3rd grade. I didn't know what nigger meant. The one thing that got me ticked off was the fact that she spat on me. So what I did in reaction, I pulled her down off the bars, and we pursued in a fight. Nothing happened to her, but my parents was called down because they wanted to expel me from Taylor. Because of my father and my mother, and in their union, my father at the time was a sergeant major in the United States Army. And they defended me, and I eventually stayed in school. I loved the sport soccer. My father and mother had to intervene for me to, I don't know if you got some older people here. Remember the Arlington Cubs soccer team back when? No one. Well, it was a soccer team by Arlington. My parents had to intervene to get me on the team. And I faced a lot of harassment, but because I loved the sport so much, and because of what my parents gave me, as far as being strong, and made me to be mindful, don't care what other people think about you. You do what you want to do. If this is what you wanted to play, go ahead and play. Now, as far as Swanson Junior High, at the time, the cheerleading squad, for 2 years I was at Swanson, they would only allow one black girl on the squad. And I'm going to call her out, the physical ed teacher, Miss Hauser, told me, yes, you're good in cheerleading, but you're too dark. And it was a lighter skinned black girl was able to get on the squad. And that was my minister's daughter, Angela Rennick. She was the only black. Okay, so for 2 years, I wasn't able to do, what I really wanted to do. When it came to going to Yorktown Senior High, our class was the first for ninth graders to be in high school at that year. I think it was 79. 79, and I went out for the squad, made the squad, freshman squad, and as well as the rest of the other 3 years, I made JV and I made varsity, and I was the only black on my squad. Until I got to the senior year, that's when I was able to be captain. So what I'm saying to you is didn't just happen in 1964, 66, 68. I graduated in 82. And certain people were allowed, to be on specialty teams. My sister, T, she was the first black gymnast at Yorktown. Yorktown. No one encouraged anybody in my race to go out. I had mentors. I had Leslie, I had Sandra Green, I had Camilla, Gail Brown. They were the trailblazers. They were the cheerleaders. Barbara Hamlet, they were the cheerleaders that I had to look up to because I knew that once, I got up up in the years, I was able to do it. So I don't know what is happening in the schools right now, but it still exists. And I think by the grace of God that I was able to make my mark at Yorktown High School. And due to my friendship, and I'm sure everybody knows Margaret Whipple, who used to be the state senator, well, I was her first daughter's best friend. And she was my best friend. And we went through learning about each other because she never had a black friend. And we, right to this day, we are still best friends, even though she lives in Colorado, but we still, connect with one another. So that's just my experience in the Arlington County School system. And I'm sure, Barbara, you might have something to say. You want to say something? Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Barbara Janelle Hamlet, and I went to Washington and Lee Senior High School from 1970 to 73. I was the only black cheerleader for the whole time, and I was co-captain of varsity my senior year, and I didn't realize that I was making a mark. I love politics and history deeply. We moved to North Arlington and when I was going to Swanson Junior High School, and I lived on the other side of the wall, so I had a different kind of experience growing up in North Arlington. I grew up on Halls Hill, but I lived on the other side of the wall, okay? I went to George Mason University and got a bachelor's in political science. When I was 9, I wanted to be a civil rights leader. I did a paper on Nat Turner's Rebellion in AP U.S. History at Washington and Lee High School. And my teacher, Laura Kreitz, gave me a B- and told me that she was going to prove that I had plagiarized my paper. And I was devastated, but it didn't stop me. I went on to George Mason, like I said, and got my degree in political science, minored in American history. I worked for the United States Congress for 30 years. But that woman could have stopped me. She could have helped me up and not pursue my passions. I went from wanting to be a civil rights leader to being a lawyer. I ended up working for the United States Congress for 30 years. I had a pretty good experience at WNL. Being the only black cheerleader was kind of like hard because I had people like Sandra Greens and God rest her soul, Lillian Brown and Willie Jackson and Audrey Jones and Leslie Deskins. Those were the people that inspired me. And thank you for letting me share.
All right, we're gonna try to wrap this up now, but let me just say this. Yeah, we went through all the different trends and everything that we went through. But I can truly say, after being all around the country, I wouldn't want to be raised anyplace else than Arlington, Virginia. Now, let's make sure you understand that. And they come up with Highview Park and all, but I didn't grow up on Highview Park. I grew up on Halls Hill. So now our last bit of information, we're talking about establishing newfound and lasting friends. Well, let me tell you something. From Arlington County, a lot of athletes I've known. I've talked about Green, Epperson. I have two friends, other friends here, and that's the Hummer boys. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to call, yeah, I meant to call you a boy. Shit. Okay? And I wish another buddy was here, that was Eric Sievers. Very good person, very good friend. But I am an Arlingtonian. It was never, I've been all over the country, and I go to speaking engagements, I used to, and I can't talk over damn now, another dollar, God damn it. But I tell folks all the time, I'm from Arlington, Virginia. And the first thing they say, oh yeah, that's where the cemetery is. Well, ain't nobody dying, damn it. I'm from Arlington, Virginia. We were the first to integrate in the state of Virginia. We are great people. I tell people all the time, they talk about white friends and black friends. I don't have white friends. I have friends who are white. I don't have black friends. I have friends who are black. I'm proud to be from Arlington, Virginia. Now, like I say, lasting friendship, the Hummers, all of these guys up here, what can I tell you, man? That's just the way we were, you know? So this is the last question. Everybody chime in on it. You go on, do your thing. I'm about to get out of here, man. You don't want the mic. You don't want the mic.
I ain't got nothing to say but good night.
Well, we were speaking of friends. I want to just mention one that he will always be my friend. And he's an individual, his name is Mike Griffin, that I would say, we would call him the taxi driver, but he gave us a ride home every night, three of the black guys that were on the basketball team. And I talked one time, and he heard the conversation, and he said I never mentioned his name, but I just want to make you know that my 1 year at Wakefield was a rewarding year, and after coming out of the military, I was able to go back there and coach football, JV football and JV basketball, and I still kept a job in Arlington because I retired in 1998 from the Arlington County Fire Department as a captain. And Arlington, I grew up here, grew up in Green Valley, and just like Reggie, yes, a senior moment, a real senior moment, was saying, you know, I will always have the guys that I played basketball and football with. They would always be my friends. And there's not a lot of them left anymore. Thank you.
I'll just say a few quick things, and that is just in concepts. First of all, there's nothing like having teammates. There's nothing like being a teammate. It's a relationship which lasts with you forever. I'm pleased to hear the cheerleaders here because it's the same thing there. We all played in pre-Title IX. I can tell you from when I to Princeton, the Princeton women's basketball team, the camaraderie among women's teams now is unbelievable. If anything, it exceeds that among men's teams. And I think everyone should realize that. It's just extraordinary when you see how women who are on athletic teams get along with each other. Wow, teamwork on and off the court. They're inseparable, absolutely inseparable. But the other thing is old friends. I mean, when I talk to you guys, it's like going into a time machine. If I'm honest, I made great friends in high school. I made great friends in college. I've probably made 10 friends my whole life after I got out of college. I mean, in terms of close friends. Friends that you can sit down with, you see them on the street, and it's like you moved the time machine back in time. You don't have to, no feeling, you don't care what you've done in your life. You're friends because you met young. I can't tell you how moved I am by every story I've heard here tonight. I'm so pleased with the good stories, and I'm so distraught over the negative stories. And I've often told people, they ask, well, what happened to Stratford? Was anything good, anything bad? I'm like, you can't ask me. I didn't live it. You have to ask the black kids who were there. But I can't tell you how distraught I am to hear stories about teachers or guidance counselors who people felt held them back instead of pulled them up. I'm glad the weight of it is going the other way, seemingly, but those stories, it's incredible how impactful events are when you're 15 to 18 years old that stick with you forever. And I'm very upset at the negative ones I've heard, but I take them as a great learning experience for myself at age 73, let me tell you.
My name is Helen Chung Vasiliadis. I graduated from Wakefield High School in 1979. I came to the United States at the age of 3 in 1970, and I wasn't black and I wasn't white. And I will tell you, this event has been very moving for me because I think most of us, we're all here talking about how we were athletes and how we were able to be part of the integration and things like that. We were the fortunate ones. The sports was the universal language that gave us an easy path to be able to get integrated. Can you imagine those that didn't have sports? I had cheerleading, which was great for me. I was the only Asian on the squad, always. But I just, I think it's for us to be very mindful about all those other people that weren't athletes. And we have to be very thankful, should see all the positives of it. So that's it.